Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another horrible case. The case of Jack and Jennifer Edwards. John Edwards was born on July 12, 1950 in Broken Hill, Australia. He faced difficult challenges in his childhood due to his alcoholic parents. At the age of 17, he stole his mother's car and ran away, leaving a short goodbye note. His family could not take him back, and he chose to cut off most of his ties with them. John began working to support himself, trying out various jobs until he was attracted by an opportunity with the Australian Department of Defence. In June, he joined the army until 2005. John has been married to 5 women, resulting in 8 children. For privacy reasons, the names of most of these women are not disclosed. His first relationship began when he was 18 in the 1960s, and they married. This marriage produced 2 children, a son and a daughter. John's first wife described him as controlling. He would restrict her spending money and occasionally come home late without notice. But overall, she was happy with their life. However, after a vacation in the United States with their children, the wife then noticed that John was frequently texting another woman he met in Boston. Unable to forgive him for his infidelity, she decided to end their relationship. John stayed in the United States with his mistress and wanted to keep the children, but his ex-wife took them with her that year. He married the Boston woman, but their marriage quickly ended. Due to his aggressive behavior, John returned home alone and tried to reconnect with his first wife. He often visited his children on weekends. Over time, his son and daughter became afraid of his outbursts. His relationship with his ex-wife also began to deteriorate. John's behavior became increasingly out of control, and eventually, his children lost interest in seeing him because of his violent nature. However, John insisted that his ex-wife was the root of the problem. He believed that she was the one who caused the discord between him and his children. He then became increasingly angry and made threatening phone calls to her. He blamed everyone for the problems he faced in his life. John's behavior toward his children did not improve. His son and daughter were terrified of him and tried to avoid any interaction. Despite his fear, John insisted on visiting them. In 1977, he began a new relationship and soon moved in with his girlfriend. They had a daughter 2 years later. In 1984, they married and had a son. But things continued to deteriorate. During this time, John's treatment of his third wife became increasingly abusive. She was pregnant, but John's violent behavior caused her to lose the baby. John's rages became increasingly frightening. He assaulted his third wife, threw objects at her, and even threatened to set her on fire while she slept. By the end of the year, the situation had become so unbearable that she decided to leave him, but was too afraid to speak out. Fearing for her life, she had prepared in advance and gathered the children together, waiting for him to go to the bathroom. She saw this as the perfect opportunity to escape with the children. The woman climbed over the fence with the children and with the help of neighbors. She contacted the police. John was subsequently arrested. John's third wife and children then sought refuge in the city. Thinking they would be safe, all of John's children described their father's cruelty, aggressive outbursts, and emotional manipulation. Unfortunately, their concerns were ignored by social services. John had 2 daughters and 2 sons by 2 different women, and he was involved in custody disputes with both. Despite numerous reports from his ex-wives of his violent behavior and the children's reluctance to see him, he continued to seek permission to see them. The children were required to spend 3 nights a week with John. Despite their apparent unwillingness, social services did not intervene. The mothers reported receiving threats and fearing for their children's safety. Family members confirmed that John had been acting inappropriately and aggressively. But the legal system ignored this evidence. In December, a warrant was issued for John's arrest after he took his daughter home from school without permission and held her for several days. A similar incident had occurred with his son, but police believed the father had done nothing wrong. They thought he was just trying to bond with his children. Eventually, John's first wife was able to completely cut off contact with him. By then, their daughter was old enough to choose whether or not to continue contact with her father. Unsurprisingly, she decided to cut off all ties and ignored all attempts to contact him after receiving the restraining order. The family felt relieved, however. The third ex-wife continued to face pressure from John and had no way to protect herself. Meanwhile, John continued to try to build his own life. He began dating a woman in the 90s, and she eventually had a son with him. By that time, their relationship had ended. John began to stalk her, insisting that he wanted to maintain a relationship with their child. Eventually, the young woman came under his influence again and continued to keep in close contact with him. John promised to change, but this was typical behavior of a manipulator. At this point, he became increasingly cruel and aggressive, and the new woman quickly realized her mistake. She moved in with John and then moved out. Living with him was extremely stressful. She lost a lot of weight and was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. However, she eventually found the strength to leave with her child. She turned to the police for protection, and with the help of various organizations, she found a home where she could hide from John. Later, he discovered her address and repeatedly showed up. Trying to break down the door and threaten her, John made several attempts to kidnap her son and eventually pressured the woman into giving him partial custody. As a result, the boy would occasionally stay at his father's house, where John also had 2 children with his third wife. When those children grew up, they chose to cut ties with their father. John later remarried, a skillful manipulator. He knew how to charm women, showering them with attention and affection. John's new wife became pregnant, but he forced her to have an abortion, and she refused. This angered him. John then made the situation worse by attacking her, pushing her down the stairs and beating her for a long time. It appeared that he intended to harm the child. As the 5th wife claimed, he aimed for her stomach with each blow. Despite his violence, she defended herself, and the child was delivered safely. John's 5th wife then fled to women's shelters to escape him. However, he found her and arranged meetings while constantly threatening her and demanding her to return to protect her child. She sought a divorce and sole custody of the child, which she was granted in September 2000. Tragically, in 2008, his 5th wife was diagnosed with a terminal illness and died in September, leaving John with custody of their 8-year-old son. By that time, John had 6 children with 4 different women, each of whom he had negatively impacted. In October 2000, John met 19-year-old Olga from Russia on a dating website. Charming and polite, John showered her with compliments and described his homeland as a wonderful place. Their romance began, and Olga flew to Australia at John's invitation to be with him. She moved in with him in August 2001, and they married on November 10 of that year. Their son Jack was born in September 2002, and daughter Jennifer in August 2004. Jack and Jennifer grew up in their family home in the quiet Sydney suburb of Pett Hills. Known for its natural beauty and close-knit community, however, John treated Olga in much the same way as he had treated his previous wives. He was verbally abusive and sought to control her every move. Unlike her previous partners, Olga found herself with no choice, with nowhere to run and no one to help her. Faced with these circumstances, Olga tried to adapt and keep the peace at the slightest sign of disobedience. John would threaten to take their children away and deport her back to Russia, fearing for her children. Olga endured the situation. John also controlled their finances, including Olga's salary, and dictated how she should dress and care for herself. His control and cruelty created an environment in which she felt extremely miserable. Jack was a kind, adventurous, an active young man who loved sports and video games. He was also very friendly and got along well with everyone around him. His younger sister, Jennifer, was quieter and calmer than him. She enjoyed spending hours reading, loved animals, and loved skateboarding. As she grew up, she had a dog and a pet rabbit. She spent a lot of time playing with her pets, driven by her love of animals. She dreamed of becoming a veterinarian, a goal she often shared with her classmates and family. When Jack was about 10 years old, John began abusing him. John treated Jack the same way he had treated his wife. Jack reacted and disobeyed his father. In response, John resorted to cruel methods to inflict pain on Jack without leaving visible marks, such as breaking his fingers with heavy objects. This bullying continued for years, leaving the boy in constant fear. He often tried to call the police for help, but his mother prevented him from doing so each time, fearing that she might lose him. To cope, Jack began sleeping with a baseball bat in his room, only feeling safe when it was hidden under his pillow. During this time, Jennifer, who also witnessed the abuse, began sleeping with a knife under her pillow in 2015. During this time, the family's trip to Paris turned chaotic when a serious fight broke out between Jack and his father John. Jack ran out of the hotel, but John chased him down the street, assaulting him by pinning him against a wall and choking him. The situation escalated, prompting passers-by to intervene. Jack then wanted to call the police, but his mother begged him not to. He complied, but the violence continued. With John becoming increasingly angry, the father's cruelty worsened over time. In December 2015, Olga decided that she could no longer tolerate his behavior and expressed her intention to file for divorce. John begged her to stay, promising to change. Olga eventually gave him another chance, but things only got worse. In January 2016, Olga became concerned and contacted the police after her son, Jack, went missing. Fortunately, the police found him within a few hours. It turned out that Jack had run away from home and did not want to return to avoid danger. Although it was clear that Jack was in a dangerous situation, the police returned him to Olga's family. Tensions continued to rise until March 2016, when Olga finally decided to take the children. On March 11, she went to a neighboring city to stay with friends, during which time she learned about John's stalking of her and his ex-wives. Fearing for her safety, she asked her friends not to reveal her whereabouts. However, despite these precautions, a friend accidentally led John to the house where Olga and the children were hiding. In April 2016, a trial began for Olga and John. Olga, along with the children, sought a protection order against John to ensure their safety. In response, John stated in court that the children were in danger of being cared for by their mother without him. During this time, he also consulted a psychiatrist who diagnosed him with anxiety and depression. However, the psychotherapist noted that John was generally doing well. John used this situation to prove that he was actively working on his problems. The court ruled that John must be informed about the whereabouts of his son and daughter. However, the court also decided that John must not come within 500 meters of Olga and the children. Despite this, he continued to follow them and try to contact them. One day, he went to Jennifer's school and tried to give her a dog. He also met Jack at the police station and wanted to send him a letter of apology. Meanwhile, John hired a private investigator to spy on his family. In February 2017, a private investigator found Olga at a yoga studio. John later confessed to the police that he regularly went to the studio to work out. The staff noticed his strange behavior and believed that he was there primarily to stalk women. When Olga reported John for violating the restraining order, police dismissed her complaint and accepted John's explanation that it was accidental. Olga claimed that the situation was clearly a case of stalking, but her complaint was ignored. John later went to the police station to file a report that he disputed Olga's allegations against him. His intention was to increase his chances of gaining custody of the children, but that didn't help him. In February 2018, the court granted Olga sole custody of the children, and they were not required to have contact with their father. Olga and the children were relieved to believe that they had finally secured their safety, however. The real struggle was just beginning. On June 25, 2018, John Edwards rented a car and began stalking Olga and the children. He visited a computer expert and deleted all the data from his hard drive and browser. On the 4th of July, he took the weapon out of his locker at 4:45 p.m. Jennifer got off the school bus and sent a text message, not realizing that John was following her around 5 p.m. Jennifer's neighbor heard several loud bangs and ran to the porch. Where he saw John leaving the house, the neighbor tried to ask John what had happened, but John quietly got into his car and drove away, realizing the danger. The neighbor knocked on the door, but received no response. The neighbor then quickly called the police and reported the situation. When the police arrived and entered the house, they found Jennifer and her uncle Jack under the computer desk in Jack's room. Both without any signs of life. They had been killed. Possibly while trying to escape the attacker, Jack was found lying on top of Jennifer, bravely shielding and protecting his sister. Olga returned home. Confused about what had just happened, police cars surrounded her house, and a helicopter hovered overhead. She learned that her son and daughter were dead, and that her ex-husband was wanted by the police. Olga immediately suspected that John was the only person capable of committing such a crime. The police decided to put Olga's house under surveillance, fearing that she might be the next target. However, he never showed up. The next morning, at around 6 a.m., the police arrived at John's house. They discovered that after the tragic incident involving the children, John, 67, returned home and took his own life. A neighbor reported that at around 6 p.m. the previous day, while walking his dog, he heard a loud bang coming from John's house. The neighbor then took his dog home, but later returned to investigate. The neighbor noticed a broken window, but was unable to enter the house. The police discovered a crumpled piece of paper in John's pocket that contained Jennifer's daily bus schedule to and from school. In the garage, they found a toolbox filled with shredded documents, burned papers, a broken tablet, and a broken cell phone. They also recovered 2 handguns from the house, which were confirmed through analysis to be the weapons used in the murders of Jack and Jennifer. The investigation revealed that the motive for the murders was related to a custody dispute. At this point, all of John's older children had stopped contacting him, and all of his ex-wives had filed restraining orders against him. John, feeling that he had lost everything, he decided to kill his children. This was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. He had meticulously planned this crime. First, he bought the weapons to commit the crime. Then, he mapped out the children's daily routine, the school bus schedule, and his wife's working hours. John also made numerous online searches related to his plan. He deleted his browsing history and destroyed all notes to hide his tracks. But some information was still recovered. The tragic events did not stop there. Olga was deeply saddened and could not bear the loss of her children, seeing Olga in pain. Her mother came from Russia to support her. She took care of Olga and encouraged her mentally, hoping to help her heal. However, after a while, the mother had to return home. 4 months later, against her mother's advice, Olga decided to stay in Australia. Tragically, just 5 months after her 2 children were murdered, Olga also passed away. For a long time, Olga lived in the house where John had murdered their son and daughter, often sleeping in her son's bed. It was in this house that a neighbor found Olga's body. The heartbreaking story of Olga and her children captured the public's attention. The children still suffered daily abuse and were forced to sleep near weapons. Separating themselves from their abusive father proved difficult, and the authorities largely ignored Olga's many complaints in response to public pressure and concerns that the case might be covered up. The state police department launched an internal investigation to determine what factors contributed to the tragic event. The investigation found that a number of police officers had been negligent in their duties. There were no reports of harassment in yoga classes, and attempts to contact the children, despite court restrictions, went unpunished even during the struggle. Olga encountered opposition. The lawyer did not consider John dangerous. He completely ignored existing restraining orders issued by all of his ex-wives. An investigation was launched into the lawyer's conduct in custody cases. The defense lawyer ignored the testimony of the teenagers, who reported that John had repeatedly emotionally abused them. He claimed that he did not find their testimony credible because they were too young. This negligence allowed John to continue his harmful behavior unchecked. The situations involving Olga, Jack, and Jennifer have highlighted weaknesses in the Australian system and prompted a re-evaluation of social protection and guardianship policies around the world. Efforts to modernize the system have begun, with the aim of improving the response to domestic violence. The lack of oversight from social services and the police allowed John not only to take the lives of his 2 children, but also to escape the consequences of his actions. John Edwards will always be remembered as a murderer who did not have the courage to face the consequences of his actions. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Neurotter family. Michelle and Lloyd Neurotter, 2 high school students, have a very close relationship. He was a year younger than she, but this didn't stop him from falling in love with her. They dated for 2 years and then got married. By the mid-90s, Lloyd graduated with an engineering degree and began teaching science at a university. He then worked as an engineer at a factory. Michelle pursued higher education and became an English teacher at a college. During this time, their first daughter was born, followed by 2 more daughters later on. The 90s were a period of many important changes for them. They moved to a large house in a town called Corning, near New York. They appeared happy. Lloyd works very hard but still makes time for his family, especially his 3 daughters. Michelle was positive and energetic, managing the household and caring for the children. As a teacher, she also educated their children at home. Together, they formed an ideal family, admired by many of their acquaintances. Over time, Lloyd's behavior changed significantly. He used to be a caring father and husband, but then he began to act in a patriarchal manner, manipulating his family to control them. He demanded complete obedience to the rules he set. If there is a conflict, he is willing to use force to force his wife and children to agree with his point of view. This caused the family's relationships to deteriorate. The only daughter with whom Lloyd maintains a good relationship is his second daughter, Carrie. She stood out among her siblings because of her loyalty to he. He spent time with her, took her to the ballet and other events, and even did her hair and makeup. However, he did not show such affection to the rest of the family. As Carrie grew up, she became a very thoughtful person, actively involved in many charitable organizations, and enjoyed helping the homeless. Despite some disagreements. But the Neurotter family stayed together until 2008. During this time, America faced a severe financial crisis, causing job and money problems for millions. Lloyd lost his job and had to look for a new one, but many others were in the same situation. Michelle also looked for jobs but couldn't find any. She had been managing household duties and caring for their daughters. Lloyd eventually found a decent job in New Jersey. Michelle was relieved that he found employment. He moved to New Jersey alone, while Michelle took a part-time job in their hometown, Corning, juggling it with childcare and housework. It was challenging for her, as she was supporting the family on her own. A few months later, things took a strange turn when Lloyd suddenly demanded a divorce from Michelle. This decision was unexpected because there had been no serious signs of trouble in their marriage. Even their friends hadn't noticed any quarrels between them. Lloyd's decision was a complete shock to Michelle and children, leaving her feeling lost. She had been an excellent mother and wife, but her husband put her in a difficult position. He claimed that during their time apart, he has no more feelings and no longer wanted to be with her. Worse still, Before proposing the divorce, he had that she cut off all ties with her family and friends. This further upset Michelle, as she felt isolated and lacking support. Despite experiencing a nervous breakdown, she managed to pull herself together. She found a job as an English teacher at a college and became a single mother. Several years after the divorce, Michelle and her children moved to another house in the same city. Her daughters had grown up, which made her life easier. The girls can help with housework and take care of themselves. This allowed Michelle to focus more on her work. She has built a successful career and made a lot of money. Even so, Lloyd, a manipulative person, still makes things difficult when fights over child support and arguing about alimony. The divorce process lasted about 5 years, during which Lloyd repeatedly attempted to discredit Michelle to gain custody. Despite this, Michelle fought back, she defending herself in court and made a rebuttal against Lloyd. Lloyd was a skilled manipulator, and after 2010, the middle daughter, Carrie, moved in with him. Little girl believed it was her own decision because she loved and missed her father. The other children did not agree with her choice and urged her to stay with their mother, Michelle. In court, the judge supported the decision of the other children to remain with Michelle. On August 28, 2017, a family friend arrived at Michelle's house to pick up her youngest daughter for swimming practice. As he got out of the car and approached the house, he noticed Michelle in an unusual position by the stairs, visible through the living room window. He knocked on the door, but no one answered, and Michelle didn't move. The dog was barking continuously, which made him feel uneasy. He found the door was unlocked. So he went inside to check. As he got closer, he realized that Michelle was not standing but was hanging from the railing. He checked her pulse, but her hand was cold and numb. He immediately called 911, reports that Michelle appears to have ended his life. When emergency services arrived, they confirmed that 46-year-old Michelle had been dead for some time and beyond repair. The police searched the house but found no one else present, even though Michelle lived there with her 14-year-old daughter. Carrie lived with Lloyd, and the eldest daughter was away at college. At first, it seemed like Michelle had committed end his life. However, as the police investigated, they found more inconsistencies in the case. There were marks on Michelle's face, suggesting the incident may have been staged. It was also strange that the youngest daughter was nowhere to be seen, even though she was supposed to be home. This led the police to consider both murder and the possible kidnapping of the child. Detectives contacted Carrie and Lloyd. They first reached Carrie, and the little girl said that her youngest sister was there. This interested the police, as the younger daughter never missed training and did not want to go to her father's house, Lloyd. Michelle hadn't allowed her to miss school the day before, so why did she go there? The police then confirmed this with Carrie. Carrie explained she had stayed overnight at Michelle's. Carrie and her sister left Michelle's home long before a family friend discovered Michelle. According to little girl, Michelle had been unstable and hysterical during the day, so Carrie didn't want to leave her younger sister with her mother and took her with her. The story seemed implausible because Michelle's body was cold when discovered, indicating she had died long before. This contradicted Carrie's statement that they left shortly before a family friend found Michelle's. Contacting Michelle's acquaintances and friends also made Carrie's story more suspicious, as they provided a different perspective to the police. A friend mentioned that 2 days before her death, Michelle attended a court hearing about custody issues for her youngest daughter. Lloyd was actively fighting for custody, but he was unexpectedly absent from the last meeting and did not answer calls, which was very unlike him. Michelle was very happy because she would win custody of her youngest daughter. She even celebrated with her lawyer, confident she would be granted full custody due to Lloyd's absence. Therefore, she had no reason to be anxious or depressed, as the custody issue had been resolved in her favor. Michelle's mother, Jeannie, upon learning about the tragedy, immediately informed the police that she suspected Lloyd of being responsible for her death. She could not believe that Michelle would choose to end her own life and leave her children behind. Consequently, Lloyd became the prime suspect, because for years, he tried to take away Michelle's custody, and their divorce had been contentious. It was initially difficult to reach Lloyd. According to Carrie, he was with her at the time of the murder, help her settle into her new home before going to university. Lloyd spent the night at a hotel in Rochester, which is about 160 kilometers from Cortland, and then flew to California for a job interview, placing him 4,000 kilometers away. When investigators contacted Lloyd and informed him of Michelle's death, he showed no emotion. After the trial, Lloyd went to the police station and confirmed Carrie's claim that during the time of Michelle's death, he was in another city helping Carrie move. According to Lloyd, Carrie came to see him at the hotel to see how he was getting along. He then took little girl to the parking lot, and she left, and he returned to his room. He provided the hotel reservation as evidence. Although he agreed to take a polygraph test, he never did. Detectives couldn't file charges due to insufficient evidence, but they were suspicious The police began reviewing CCTV footage and phone records to track the movements of Lloyd and Carrie in the days leading up to Michelle's death. They found inconsistencies between the footage and the location of Lloyd's phone, suggesting he was deliberately leaving his phone behind to hide his movements. It became clear he was not truthful. Carrie was indeed with he at a Rochester hotel, but in the evening, they went to the parking lot, and he did not return to the room as he claimed. They went somewhere on the night of the murder and only returned at 7 a.m. the next day. Investigators found that Lloyd was in financial trouble. He has to bear large debts. He owed $100,000 on one credit card and was in desperate need of money. However, after the death of Michelle, he received over $200,000 from her life insurance, which was beneficial for him. This made investigators more suspicious of him, and they to scrutinize him more closely. When checking the location data from Carrie and Lloyd's cell phones, investigators found out that it seemed like Carrie was involved too. The decision was made to monitor the conversations between Carrie and Lloyd. Wiretaps of their phone calls revealed they were indeed hiding something. They avoided many topics during their discussions, and Lloyd often abruptly ended Carrie's questions, as if aware they were being monitored. Some conversations were deferred to face-to-face meetings. Lloyd repeatedly stressed the importance of keeping quiet during their calls, indicating they had secrets to conceal. The detectives were certain they were on the right track and expected Carrie and Lloyd to confess, but it didn't happen. So, the police decided to accelerate the investigation by speaking to Carrie directly. They invited her for questioning. However, she did not go to the police station, making various excuses. Through wiretapping, the police discovered that Lloyd was pressuring her to delay and forbade her from going to the station to avoid exposure. Meanwhile, a forensic expert performed an autopsy on Michelle and confirmed clear signs of murder. He found bruises around her eyes and marks on her chin. It appeared she was attacked from behind and strangled. The attacker held her by the throat, making it difficult for her to resist. It was evident that she hadn't committed to end his life, and the situation was clearly a setup. This forced them to contact Carrie again. However, she continued not to go to the police station. The detectives didn't want to hear her excuses anymore, so they met her right after school. She was caught off guard and confused at the police station. Initially, she denied everything. She admitted to being with Lloyd at Michelle's house that morning, but claimed she didn't know what happened there. Her parents started arguing, then they went upstairs and continued arguing. Under pressure from the detectives, Carrie revealed an even more terrifying than Lloyd's. Carrie confessed that Lloyd really killed Michelle, and she was there to ensure her sister didn't witness the crime. She was actually an accomplice to the murder. A week before the incident, She and Lloyd planned to make it look like Michelle had ended her life. The police listened to the candid confession of She. She admitted to hating her mother but couldn't explain why. She idolized her father, Lloyd. This is typical behavior of a manipulated person. Under Lloyd's influence, Carrie's hatred for Michelle grew, he manipulating her until the end. This manipulation led her to become an accomplice, agreeing to help him, covering for him, and help prove his alibi. The police arrested Carrie. Then, they went to Lloyd's house, but he wasn't there. Investigators tracked him down in Princeton using his phone. When officers arrived at the parking lot where he was located, Lloyd saw them and climbed onto a railing, threatening to jump from the 5th floor. After 2 hours of negotiations, the police were able to reach him, and he was arrested. He was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and tampering with evidence. He was shocked by the arrest and denied all charges. He claimed he was at a hotel during the crime. Phone records supported his alibi, and he had a room reservation at the time. However, CCTV footage showed him leaving the hotel with Carrie at night and returning during the day. GPS data placed him near Michelle's house at the time of the murder, and Michelle's pajamas had his DNA. This evidence dismantled his alibi. 19-year-old Carrie was charged with second-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and concealment of evidence. She faced a potential life sentence with the possibility of parole after 25 years. To avoid the maximum penalty, she admitted her guilt and agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. She was required to testify against her own father at the trial. During the trial, the prosecutor highlighted a troubling aspect of the case: Carrie was directly involved in the crime. She was present in Michelle's house and assisted Lloyd. Despite having multiple chances to stop the crime, she chose not to intervene and instead helped her father murder her mother. According to the evidence, Carrie and Lloyd arrived at Michelle's house early in the morning. She trusted them and opened the front door, unaware of the impending betrayal by they. Lloyd attacked Michelle and strangled her with a rope. While this happened, Carrie ensured that her younger sister remained asleep and did not witness the crime. After the murder, they left through the back door, preventing the younger sister from realizing what had occurred inside the house. The evidence collected by the detectives included nearly 26 files. Most pointed out that Lloyd had been turning Carrie against her mother, Michelle, for years. He consistently insulted Michelle and portrayed her negatively. Once Carrie moved in with him, he began to restrict her communication. His goal was to kill Michelle and other children. Consequently, she unintentionally developed hatred toward Michelle. The prosecution claimed that the motive for the murder was to claim life insurance money and avoid sharing custody of his youngest daughter. Lloyd believed that making Michelle's death look like she had ended her own life would allow them to live comfortably with the money. In court, Carrie testified that Lloyd gave her a harsh ultimatum: either they kill her mother, or he might end his own life. He complained about his difficult financial situation because he had to pay $6,000 in alimony every month, stating he couldn't continue living this way. Faced with this, Carrie made a dire choice and agreed to help in the crime against Michelle. The prosecutor acknowledged that Lloyd manipulated Carrie and advocated for lenient punishment for her. Ultimately, he admitted his guilt in the murder. As a result, Lloyd was found guilty of first-degree murder and other charges. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and is currently held at Clinton Correctional Facility in New York. During the trial, Carrie's maternal grandmother, Jeannie, requested a lighter sentence for Carrie and a harsher sentence for Lloyd, who had tormented Michelle throughout their 25-year marriage and ultimately killed her. Jeannie expressed that she did not believe Michelle would have wanted a severe prison sentence for Carrie, but rather for little girl to lead a happy life. Carrie was found guilty of concealing evidence. The judge considered Jeannie's plea and the prosecutor's perspective, resulting in the lightest possible sentence of 1 to 3 years in prison. Carey was released early on January 16, 2020. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Neha Varma. Megha Deshpande lived with her 21-year-old daughter, Ashlesha, and her 70-year-old mother, Rohini, in a luxurious neighborhood called Srinagar in Indore. This city known for consistently ranking as one of the cleanest in India. The fact that they resided in Srinagar, an area predominantly inhabited by the wealthy, suggested that the Deshpande family was financially well off. Megha worked for a multi-level marketing (MLM) company for a considerable time. MLM is also referred to as network marketing, direct selling, and pyramid selling. To understand how an MLM business works, imagine a pyramid structure. At the top is the company owner. When the owner recruits two individuals and they join the company, it creates a network. These two individuals then recruit more people to join the company, and the process continues. The company generates profit from each new member or associate that joins, allowing the business owner to constantly earn income through the growth of their network. Before moving to Indore, Megha lived in Yuan, a city approximately 35 miles away, with her husband, Nanai Deshpande. However, due to his job as a bank manager, Nanai remained in Yuan, while Megha relocated to Indore with her daughter and mother a few months ago. Thanks to Nanai's stable job and Megha's successful career in the MLM company, the Megha's family has a stable financial situation and does not have to worry about money. In the neighborhood where Megha lives, people are very united, and it is also very safe with very little crime. Residents have always felt safe, and nothing unusual has ever happened there until June 13, 2011, when that all changed. On that day, no one in Megha's family left the house until noon, and no one heard their voices. A neighbor walked by Megha's house, and then she noticed a very strange thing. Footprints made of bloody stains led around the house, alarming her. She quickly notified the landlord. And the landlord then knocked on the doors several times, but received no answer. Next, the landlord attempted to look inside through a window and was met with a very scary sight. 3 women were lying on the floor, their bodies covered in blood. Overcome with fear, he quickly alerted the police. The brutal murder of the Megha family members sent shockwaves through the community. By the time the police arrived at the crime scene, a large crowd had gathered outside their house. Upon entering the house, the police officers were met with a gruesome scene: the bodies of 3 women who had been brutally murdered. The police secured the crime scene and began their investigation. During this process, they found 2 bullet shells inside the house. One of the shells was linked to the gunshot wound that killed Megha, who had been shot in the head. However, despite a thorough search of the house lobby, the police were unable to locate the second bullet. A forensic team was called in to collect evidence from the crime scene. The bodies of the 3 women were then sent for post-mortem examination. As news of the murder spread, the entire city of Indore was left reeling in shock. The post-mortem report later revealed that 21-year-old Ashlesha and her 70-year-old grandmother, Rohini, had died from excessive bleeding caused by multiple stab wounds inflicted on their bodies. This report confirms that Megha was the only one shot to death. However, it raises a crucial question for the police: if 2 bullet shells were found, who was the second shot intended for? Megha's husband, along with the public, also started pressuring the police, demanding that they solve the case quickly so that the criminals are held accountable to the fullest extent of Indian law. This makes it even more urgent for the police to solve this case quickly. To do this, several teams were deployed to investigate. One team analyzed the call detail records of the 3 victims, Megha, Ashlesha, Rohini. Another team re-examined the forensic evidence. Initially, the police have collected a blood sample from the crime scene that didn't belong to Megha, Ashlesha, or Rohini. The police then detained and questioned various suspects from the surrounding area. Based on the evidence collected, the police have recorded this as a robbery and murder case. Further investigation of the phone records revealed that there was a phone number that had called Mega multiple times and she had long conversations with this number. After obtaining detailed information about the number, the police found it was registered to a girl named Neha. They then began tracking her location to gather potential leads in the case. One day, the police located Neha near an ATM in the area. They promptly sent a team to bring her to the police station for questioning. After being informed of the situation of the case, Neha was left astounded. She explained that she initially met Mega at a shopping mall. Then, Neha had bumped into Mega while rushing, causing Mega to drop some items. As Neha apologized and helped Mega gather her belongings, they engaged in conversation and developed a rapport. And Neha even driving Mega to her car, marking the start of their friendship. Neha also discovered that Mega worked for a multi-level marketing, MLM, company. After exchanging phone numbers, they occasionally spoke over the phone. Neha's interest in the MLM business model led her to discuss it with Mega. However, the police found Neha's story suspicious, as her words didn't match her body language. As a result, the police questioned her forcefully and in a confrontational manner. Neha initially tries to hide her dishonesty, but under intense police questioning, she confesses. She then told the police a story that even surprised them. Neha Varma was a 23-year-old beautician who was known for her beauty and cheerful personality. Her father, a van driver, had limited financial resources, making it challenging for Neha to pursue her dreams. During this time, Neha met Rahul, and they developed a close friendship that blossomed into romance. At 24, Rahul was handsome but also struggled financially. Despite their similar financial situations, they deeply loved each other and wanted to get married. They sought opportunities to rapidly build wealth and achieve a comfortable lifestyle, securing their financial future. Neha and Mega met for the first time. Mega, who had a taste for expensive jewelry, was wearing gold ornaments that day. Neha perceived Mega as wealthy due to her jewelry and decided to approach her. Neha started approaching Mega by deliberately bumping into her, start chatting and befriending her. Neha started thinking about robbing Mega after getting to call her through phone calls. Neha then shared her plan with her boyfriend Rahul, telling him that Mega was extremely wealthy, making her an easy target. Rahul liked the idea, as it would solve their financial problems and allow them to live comfortably once they were married. Following this, Rahul started making plans to kill Mega and the two other women in her house. He thought that if he could get away with the crime without anyone finding out, no one would be able to file a complaint against them. Rahul finalized his plan but needed a gun to carry it out. Luckily for him, his friend Manoj, who was close to both Rahul and Neha, had a gun. Rahul had been planning to kill Mega and her family, and he was waiting for the perfect moment to execute his plan. That moment arrived on June 13, 2011. On that day, Neha called Mega and expressed interest in joining her multi-level marketing scheme, MLM. Unbeknownst to Mega, this was a ruse orchestrated by Rahul. Neha arrived at Mega's house early in the morning, and Mega asked her to fill out a membership form. However, Neha didn't know what information to fill in the form, so she asked Mega if she could get a friend arrive to help her. Mega agreed, and Neha then called Rahul, as planned. Rahul and his accomplice, Manoj, were waiting for Neha's call, and they immediately went to Mega's house. Once Rahul entered the house, he pulled out a gun and shot Mega at point-blank range, killing her instantly. The sound of this gunshot reached Ashlesha and Rohini, causing both of them to run into the lobby. Rahul and Manoj initially intimidated Ashlesha and her grandmother Rohini, demanding Ashlesha's ATM card and PIN in exchange for their lives. Ashlesha, hoping to be spared, quickly handed over the card. However, Rahul and Manoj were aware that they had been seen, and this posed a risk to their. To eliminate witnesses, Rahul attempted to shoot Ashlesha but accidentally shot himself in the foot instead. Manoj then took a knife and brutally murdered both Ashlesha and Rohini. After the killings, the three thieves, including Neha, Rahul, Manoj, stole approximately 1 million Indian rupees and valuable jewelry worth up to $500,000 rupees and Ashlesha's ATM card. Rahul, along with Neha and Manoj, had planned to use the ATM card to withdraw cash. However, their plan failed when Neha was arrested by the police. Rahul to file an untrue report at the police station and was arrested, but was later hospitalized due to gunshot wounds. The police matched Rahul's blood sample from the crime scene to one taken from him. It was a match. The police quickly solved the case and arrested the suspects. Following a prolonged and contentious court case, the three defendants, Neha, Rahul, Manoj, were sentenced to death by hanging in December 2013. The district court handed down this severe punishment due to the heinous nature of the crime, in which the defendants killed women from 3 generations of the Mega family. Physical evidence, including blood-stained clothing, knives, and jewelry, was recovered from the defendants by the police. One of the defendants, Neha, is currently serving her sentence in the central jail. Notably, she has been teaching a beauty parlor course to fellow female inmates while incarcerated. This case was notable for being the first time the district court had imposed a death sentence on a woman. Neha and Rahul's desire for quick wealth led them to get involved in a life of crime. It is fortunate that the perpetrators were caught. If Megha had not worn her valuable jewelry to the mall and had not trusted a stranger she met there, the outcome may have been different. Megha's husband, Nana Deshpande, was pleased with the court's decision and praised the judiciary and the police for their efforts. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Leanne Tiernan. Leanne Tiernan was born on September 27, 1984, to Michael Tiernan and Sharon Hawkhead in Bramley. Although her parents divorced shortly after her birth, Leanne remained close to her father. She and her older sister, Michelle, lived with their mother in Leeds, but their father continued to play an active role in their lives. Leanne was also very fond of her grandparents and would often accompany them to church on Sunday mornings. She had a sweet tooth and was affectionately nicknamed Chocolate Chip Niece by an uncle. Leanne was a student at West Leeds High School. She had been diligently studying for her GCSEs. A day out with her best friend, 15-year-old Sarah Whitehouse, was a fun holiday. They planned to go to Leeds for some early Christmas shopping. On Sunday, November 26, 2000, after going to church with her grandmother, Leanne returned home to prepare for an outing with Sarah. She wears a black and white ribbed turtleneck sweater, black pants, and black ankle boots over a blue jacket. She styled her hair in her favorite French style, kissed her mother, and set off to meet Sarah. Leanne and Sarah took a bus to downtown Leeds and spent the afternoon shopping. By late afternoon, they finished their work and boarded the bus back to Bramley. At about 4:50 p.m., they got out of the car and walked to Sarah's house and parted ways. Sarah watched Leanne walk towards Howley Gill, a public footpath that was a shortcut to her house. Even though the path was unlit and went through a wooded area, Leanne felt safe walking because it was still light out. It should have only taken Leanne 20 minutes to get home, but when Sarah called Leanne's house at 5:20 p.m. to chat, she was surprised to hear that Leanne hadn't come home yet. Sharon kept calling Leanne's mobile phone, but she did not answer. At 7 p.m., Sharon reported Leanne missing to the local police station. West Yorkshire Police, led by Detective Superintendent Chris Gregg, launched a large-scale search operation. The terrain is challenging, with more than 700 homes, vacant lots, woods, canals, drainage shafts, and wells to search. The police are determined to find Leanne and bring her home safely. They used helicopters, uniformed police, and search dogs to scour the area, going from house to house. To preserve any potential evidence, trash collection in the area has been suspended. A week later, despite their best efforts, there was still no sign of Leanne. Investigators reconstructed her final activities with the help of her sister Michelle and close friend Sarah. As the investigation unfolded, several witnesses came forward claiming to have seen a suspicious man walking his black and tan dog in the Howley Gill area just an hour before Leanne got off the bus on her way home. The police created a composite sketch of the man, describing him as 5 feet 8 inches with a stocky build, round face, and possible scarring. He was seen wearing a black beanie, a long waterproof coat, and dirty jeans. Police have released this information to the public. As the investigation stalled, the case began to go cold. However, the public continues to show support for Leanne's family, doing everything they can to make her story known. Dad of 3 from Leeds, Sean Clark, even offered a £10,000 reward for any information that could lead to Leanne's safe return. Additionally, Iceland Foods, a supermarket chain, printed Leanne's picture and details on their milk cartons nationwide. As the months passed, investigators searched more than 2,000 homes and outbuildings along Leanne's route home from the shopping district. The police still haven't found Leanne. Her loved ones always hoped that one day she would return home. But 9 months after her disappearance, on August 20, 2001, a man named Mark Bisson was walking his dog in Lindley Woods, a forest near North Yorkshire, when he stumbled upon a mysterious discovery. Initially, it appeared to be a pile of rubbish, but as he looked closer, he discovered a floral duvet wrapped in twine. When removing the rope, Bisson found a body wrapped in 9 large garbage bags. The police were called, and they carefully removed the blanket and bag to reveal the body of a fully clothed young girl. The body was found with its hands bound behind its back with 3 yellow cable ties, and a leather dog collar was tightly secured around its neck. Underneath the black garbage bag covering its head, investigators discovered the decomposing face of a young woman. Using fingerprints, they were able to identify the body as Leanne Tiernan. An autopsy later confirmed that Leanne had been strangled to death with a plastic cable tie. The investigation shifted from a missing persons case to a murder inquiry. Authorities believe the killer was likely a local resident. 2 key pieces of evidence support this theory. Leanne's body was found just 16 miles from where she was last seen, and the yellow cable used to bind her hands is commonly used by the British postal system, especially Royal Mail or Parcel Force. The green garbage bags used to wrap Leanne's body were identified as coming from Morrison's, a popular grocery store chain with 2 locations in the area. Investigators collected DNA samples from Leanne's family members, friends, and known sex offenders in the area, hoping to find a match. In addition, a thorough search of the bushland area where Leanne's body was buried was conducted. The investigation into Leanne's death was ongoing, but one thing puzzled detectives: her body was found in an area that had been thoroughly searched before, and it didn't show the usual signs of decomposition after 9 months. Her hair was still styled in the same ponytail with the same hair tie and clip she had when she went missing. The medical examiner's analysis of her cardiac tissue revealed that Leanne was killed on the day she was kidnapped, and her body was stored in a cold environment for months. The killer attempted to dispose of her body by leaving it in a common dump area, wrapped in a duvet, a few weeks before it was discovered. Although the killer tried to hide the body, he accidentally saved a significant amount of forensic evidence and DNA. However, when authorities analyzed the body, they were disappointed to find no DNA evidence of the killer. They then turned their attention to investigating the items found with Leanne's body, hoping to find clues that will help them catch the killer. The investigation found dog hair on Leanne's clothes, leading police to attempt to create a DNA profile of the dog in the hope of identifying the killer. The dog hair was sent to a Texas university that specializes in DNA profiling of purebred pets. Although the university was able to obtain a partial DNA profile, they were unable to match it to a specific dog, so analysis was stopped. A knitted scarf was found around Leanne's neck containing knotted human hair. The hair was submitted for DNA testing, and a DNA profile was successfully created from the small amount of DNA found inside the hair shaft. The police then turned their attention to the dog collar that had been used to wrap a black bin liner around Leanne's neck. The collar was found to have been manufactured by a company called Armitage Leather Products, based in Nottingham. Detectives hoped that if the killer had purchased the dog collar from them, they might be able to obtain his name or address. The police reached out to the manufacturer and requested sales records. After analyzing these documents, investigators contacted more than 220 wholesalers across the UK. Their 112th inquiry proved successful. They contacted a company called Pet Pajamas, based in Liverpool, which revealed that it had sold 3 of the distinctive dog collars in question. Pet Pajamas provided investigators with details of the 3 customers who had bought these items. The detectives started investigating the customers and soon identified a prime suspect, John Taylor from Bramley, near the area where Leanne was last seen. Taylor's name had previously come up during the investigation when Leanne's body was found. At the time, witnesses reported that Taylor was frequently seen in the woods with his dog. By the time investigators prepared to question Taylor, he had already stated that his dog had passed away before Leanne's murder, sparking suspicion that he may have deliberately killed his pet to conceal evidence. At first glance, John Taylor seemed like a regular person. He was a 45-year-old man working as a delivery driver for Parcel Force, a division of the Royal Mail. He had no serious criminal history except for one instance when he stole a suit as a 15-year-old. He was previously married, with the couple having 2 children, a son in 1981 and a daughter in 1983, before they got a divorce in 1996. He appeared to be living a solitary and unassuming life in a modest house on Cockshott Drive, Bramley, Leeds. Taylor's neighbors consider him a normal person, but he enjoys causing pain to animals. He would hunt and torture rabbits, stab foxes, and bludgeon pheasants to death. In 1982, Taylor started breeding dogs and ferrets at his home on Cockshott Drive, which led to a buildup of animal waste. The smell eventually became unbearable for his wife, Janet, who had always taken pride in their home. Janet could no longer tolerate the situation and filed for divorce. Taylor frequently traveled around the country, not for work but to meet women he had contacted online. He often uses the internet to find female friends online and often has sex with them. Investigators later tracked down some of these women through Taylor's phone records and interviewed them. While most described him as harmless, some admitted to having called the police to report him as a suspect after the discovery of Leanne's body. 2 women, in particular, described Taylor as someone who enjoyed violence during intimate encounters. He even told one woman that he had a desire to have sex with her daughter. A former girlfriend of Taylor's ended their relationship due to his fascination with bondage. She reported that Taylor would restrain her hands with cable ties and cover her face with scarves. When questioned by investigators, she described Taylor's method of restraint, which involved using a bundle of cable ties stored in his bedside drawer. He would bind her wrists with 2 cable ties and then connect them behind her back with a 3rd tie. This technique was eerily similar to the way Leanne's body was found, and the details had not been publicly disclosed. 10 months after Leanne's disappearance, Taylor was arrested and brought in for questioning. A warrant was issued for his DNA and a search of his property. The police immediately cordoned off his house on Cockshott Drive and conducted a thorough search of the premises. In the backyard, they discovered a hedge plant, a plum tree, and a poplar tree. Pollen from these plants was found on Leanne's hair, skin, and nasal tract, indicating that she had been at the location before her death. During the search, police excavated the garden and found the remains of various animals, including 28 ferrets buried in a mass grave and the skeletons of 4 dogs. One of the dogs, a tan and black terrier, had a crushed skull. It is possible that Taylor killed his dog to conceal his identity after learning that the police were looking for a suspect with a dog. Forensic tests revealed that the hairs found on Leanne's body matched those of the tan and black terrier. Investigators gathered crucial evidence linking Taylor to Leanne's murder inside the house. A closer examination of the floorboards revealed pink carpet fibers caught on nails, which matched the fibers found on Leanne's body. Additionally, a blood stain belonging to Leanne was discovered under the floorboards. The twine used to tie the bin liners around Leanne's body was identified as part of a unique batch produced by a manufacturer in Devon, specifically designed for making rabbit-catching nets. A matching batch was found in Taylor's home. Further investigation revealed a stash of yellow zip ties in Taylor's house, which were manufactured by an Italian company exclusively for the Royal Mail. As Taylor worked for Parcel Force, a division of Royal Mail, it was easy for him to obtain these ties. A nail in John's kitchen had the same type of garbage bag wrapped around it, adding to the evidence. 3 large freezers were also found on the property, although their significance was not immediately clear. Initially, Taylor denied knowing Leanne or being involved in her murder. However, when giving evidence, Taylor admitted to kidnapping Leanne but insisted her death was an accident. He claimed that Leanne died from a fall that hit her head. According to investigators, Leanne's death did not occur as a result of a fall, as claimed by Taylor. In reality, Taylor attacked Leanne from behind while she was walking alone on the unlit path of Holly Gill. There were no eyewitnesses, but a stifled scream was reported. Investigators concluded that Taylor then strangled Leanne and bound her hands with cable ties, resulting in her death. In 2002, John Taylor, 46, was found guilty of murdering and kidnapping Leanne. He received 2 life sentences and will be eligible for parole after 20 years. After his conviction, investigators discovered that Taylor had committed previous crimes. Once his DNA was added to the police database, they matched him to 2 old assault cases. One assault occurred on October 18, 1988. A 32-year-old woman was attacked while walking to pick up her kids from school on Holly Gill. Taylor was masked and carried a knife. Another attack happened on March 1, 1989, when Taylor entered a Bramley house through force, masked and with a knife. He dragged a 21-year-old mother into her bedroom and attacked her. He also stripped, blindfolded, and gagged her, while her 18-month-old daughter cried in the next room. The investigation into Leanne's murder showed a clear calculation in the disposal of her body. After her murder, Taylor kept her body in his kitchen freezer. In the years following Leanne's case, police conducted a nationwide review of similar cold cases. In 2018, the full extent of John Taylor's heinous crimes came to light when he confessed to a series of vile acts committed against 5 women between 1977 and 1996. One of these incidents involved holding a knife to the throat of a pregnant woman and forcing her to perform a degrading act. Another incident occurred in 1977, just before Christmas, when he assaulted a barmaid. Taylor pleaded guilty to these attacks and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He is currently serving his sentence at Wakefield Prison, a maximum security facility notorious for housing infamous and violent offenders. Many questions remain about the extent of Taylor's crimes, including how many more murders and assaults he may have committed and how far back his crimes date. It is also unclear how he managed to evade capture for so long. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Amanda Plass. Amanda Lynn Plass was born on December 11, 1990, in Choppy, Massachusetts, where she grew up with her sister Emily and brother Nicholas. Her mother, Michelle Myers, described Amanda as a free-spirited individual who often seemed out of place in the present time. In 2011, Amanda was working as a waitress at a local restaurant in Chappie and was in a relationship with a 27-year-old carpenter named Seth Green. Tragedy struck on August 26, 2011. Seth called 911 and reported that he had found Amanda lying unresponsive in the kitchen of her apartment. When police and paramedics arrived, they found that Amanda was already deceased from multiple stab wounds to her chest, throat, and abdomen. The scene was immediately cordoned off, and investigations were initiated. Seth was found sitting on the porch, visibly distressed and emotional. Detectives carefully searched Amanda's apartment for evidence, but the perpetrator had managed to escape the scene. The investigation was ongoing, with the goal of identifying the person responsible for Amanda's murder and bringing them to justice. Detectives began their investigation at the crime scene, where they found a significant amount of blood splatter in the kitchen, indicating that this was where the attack occurred. The evidence suggested that a knife was the likely murder weapon, and it was taken by the perpetrator. Further analysis revealed visible shoe prints from Nike sneakers on the floor and broken window glass, bearing a palm print in one of the rooms. Given the type and number of wounds on Amanda's body, detectives suspected that the perpetrator was someone Amanda knew, and the motive was likely a personal vendetta. As a result, they brought Amanda's boyfriend, Seth Green, in for questioning at the police station. When Seth arrived at the police station, he appeared visibly shaken, overcome with emotion over the loss of his girlfriend. The investigators were interested in determining his emotional response. During the interrogation, Seth explained that he had spent the entire day at work and had planned to give Amanda a ride to her workplace, but was unable to do so due to his own work schedule. Seth had a limited relationship with Amanda, but he loved her and had no motive to harm her. As a carpenter, Seth used various tools at work, including a knife on his tool belt. However, he consistently left his tools at work after his shift, and this day was no exception. After finishing his work, Seth changed his clothes, left his tools behind, and went to meet Amanda. He understood why he was the main suspect, but he denied any involvement in her death. The police investigation confirmed Seth's alibi, and he passed a polygraph test. Additionally, the boots he was wearing when the police arrived didn't match the Nike sneakers found at the crime scene, further ruling out his involvement. Amanda's tragic death led to a complex investigation. Initially, the police explored the possibility that her ex-boyfriend was involved, but further inquiry ruled him out as a suspect. He provided a DNA sample and fingerprints, which did not match the evidence found at the crime scene. Moreover, he had a solid alibi, eliminating him from the list of potential perpetrators. The family's pain deepened when they found out that some police officers had taken photos of Amanda's body while the state police were on their way to the crime scene. These officers shared the disturbing images with other officers and civilians, breaking the family's trust with the authorities and adding to their emotional pain. The case remained stagnant for approximately 2 years until investigators decided to review the evidence again. During this review, a crucial clue was discovered on a dry erase board in Amanda's bedroom. The message, "Dennis was here 8/11, had gone unnoticed until then. Considering the date, this message became significant. It was just 15 days before Amanda's body was discovered in her apartment. The revelation sparked questions. Who was Dennis, and was he connected to Amanda's death? The police had not come across this name throughout the entire investigation. Detectives analyzed Amanda's phone records and social media posts to see if she had any connections to someone named Dennis. Amanda's ex-boyfriend reported to the police that her apartment had been broken into several times when she was not home. Amanda suspected a young man whose name started with the letter D. She knew this man and wanted to resolve the issue peacefully, so she decided to talk to him first. During their meeting, Amanda tried to discuss the break-ins, but the man denied any involvement. When Amanda mentioned that a neighbor had seen him in her apartment, she politely asked him to return her stolen belongings. However, the man left. The investigation then focused on identifying the man named Dennis, who was suspected of being involved in Amanda's death. The police found a man named Dennis Rosa Roman living 3 blocks from the scene of the crime. A background check revealed that Dennis had a history of breaking and entering. Although there was no palm print to match the one found at Amanda's home, the police still wanted to question Dennis. They located him in Westfield, Massachusetts, and invited him to the station for an informal conversation. However, Dennis declined the invitation. But in November 2013, Dennis voluntarily visited the police station. The police questioned Dennis about his relationship with Amanda, and he acknowledged knowing her from Chappie, but claimed he hadn't seen her in a couple of years, which was true since Amanda had been deceased for a couple of years. When asked if he had ever visited Amanda's apartment, Dennis denied ever being there and stated that he didn't know her well. He admitted to occasionally selling weed to Amanda, which was how they occasionally interacted. During the interrogation, Dennis agreed to provide a DNA swab and revealed the size of his shoes, which matched the one found at the crime scene. However, the police noted that Dennis's Nike Air Max shoes had a different tread pattern than the ones that left bloody tracks at the crime scene. After providing his DNA, Dennis refused to answer further questions, promising to return to the police station in a few days to continue the conversation. Initially, the police didn't have sufficient grounds to arrest Dennison, so he was released. This decision was made despite concerns that he might flee and hinder the investigation. Further investigation revealed that Amanda and Dennis had made several phone calls to each other on July 28, 2011. The phone records showed that Amanda initiated 4 calls, while Dennis initiated 5 calls. When Dennis returned to the police station a few days later, his story changed. He now claimed that he had communicated with Amanda about break-ins at her apartment when she wasn't home. Amanda didn't report the incidents because nothing of value was stolen. The investigators found this story unconvincing, particularly since they had heard about the alleged break-ins multiple times before. Their suspicions grew, and they strongly suspected that Dennis was actually the person responsible for breaking into Amanda's apartment. As Rosa Roman continued to alter his initial statement, the investigators became more confident that he was hiding something crucial to the case. The priority shifted to uncovering the truth about his involvement in Amanda's death and determining what secrets he was trying to conceal. When investigators showed Dennis a photo of a dry erase board with the message, "Dennis was here," on August 11, 2011, he initially admitted to writing it, contradicting his previous statement that he had never entered Amanda's apartment. This admission was significant, as it directly implicated him in the crime. Furthermore, DNA results confirmed that Dennis had given false testimony, as his DNA matched the DNA found under Amanda's fingernails, and his palm print was found on a glass at the crime scene. After realizing that the police had gathered sufficient evidence for his arrest, Dennis changed his story for the 3rd time. He now claimed that he had been present at the crime scene and had attempted to save Amanda from the attacker. However, he refused to name the alleged attacker, citing concerns for his and his family's safety. Instead, he provided a detailed description of the person he claimed was responsible for Amanda's death. Dennis described the alleged attacker as a tall, white, light-skinned individual with blue eyes, weighing between 170 and 200 pounds. He also claimed that the person was wearing old pants, dirty boots, and a t-shirt with the phrase, "Why drink and drive when you can smoke and fly?" Despite this new information, detectives did not believe Dennis's story, as all the evidence pointed to him as the sole perpetrator of the crime. As a result, Dennis was arrested and charged with Amanda's murder. The trial took place almost 3 years after Amanda's death, and centered around the debate over whether Dennis was responsible for her murder. His lawyers presented the argument that although Dennis was at the crime scene, he did not commit the murder. Instead, they accused the police of botching the investigation and framing Dennis after their efforts to find the perpetrator failed. Dennis claimed that his involvement in Amanda's death was involuntary. He stated that his dealer forced him to collect a debt at her apartment. Dennis allegedly tried to help Amanda, but couldn't stop the dealer. He cited his DNA under her nails as evidence, saying she grabbed his hand during the incident. In contrast, the prosecutors had a different explanation for the events leading to Amanda's death. They believed that Dennis was breaking into Amanda's apartment while she was not home and that she had caught him. During one of these break-ins, Dennis allegedly left an inscription with his name on a board. Amanda assumed that Dennis was the trespasser who had stolen from her, and that is why she called him and asked him to return the stolen items. This explained the multiple phone calls between Amanda and Dennis on the day she died. Dennis, the killer of Amanda, mistakenly believed Amanda was already at work, re-entered her apartment, and ultimately took her life in a fit of anger during a dispute. A jury convicted Dennis of the crime after 8 days of testimony and 5 hours of deliberation. Dennis received a life sentence in prison with no possibility of parole. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Rebecca Payne. Rebecca Charlotte Payne was born on April 19, 1986 in New Milford, Connecticut, to Virginia and Nicholas Payne. She grew up as an only child and graduated from New Milford High School in 2004, where she was active in sports, playing field hockey, track, and tennis. After high school, Rebecca pursued a degree in athletic training at Northeastern University in Boston. The 5-year program focused on preventing and treating athletic injuries. During her 4th year, she became a leader on campus, serving on the Dean's Council and as president of the athletic training club. Rebecca was known for her friendly and outgoing personality, making it easy for her to connect with people from all walks of life. She was always willing to lend a helping hand, which earned her many friends. Her life was tragically cut short when she was found dead in May 2008. The news shocked her friends and left them wondering who could have committed such a heinous crime. The police investigation revealed that there were no signs of forced entry at her home, suggesting that Rebecca may have known her killer and possibly let them in voluntarily. Rebecca's apartment, situated on the 3rd floor, consisted of 2 bedrooms. One of these rooms was where Rebecca lay face down on the floor, lifeless. The trail of blood leading from the living room to this bedroom suggested that the attack had occurred in the living room. This theory was later confirmed by forensic experts who found casings at the scene and determined that Rebecca had been shot 5 times. The bloodstains in the apartment indicated that Rebecca was initially conscious and managed to crawl to the bedroom, but her strength eventually gave out. The detective's task was to identify the person responsible for such brutality. They quickly ruled out the possibility of a theft gone wrong, as Rebecca's valuables remained untouched. The apartment was in disarray, with scattered belongings. However, the detectives suspected that the perpetrator intentionally created this mess to mislead them. Alternatively, the mess could have been a result of Rebecca's struggle to resist her attacker. During the investigation, officers noticed that both the balcony door and the front door were open. Furthermore, signs in the 2nd bedroom indicated that someone else had lived there. After speaking with the apartment manager, they discovered Rebecca didn't live alone, but shared an apartment with a fellow student. This new information led the police to search for the student. The police also questioned everyone living in Parker Hill Apartments, trying to find any leads. The attack on Rebecca was loud and brutal, with 5 gunshot wounds. It was surprising that many residents heard a woman screaming and gunshots between 3 and 4 a.m., but none of them called the police. This lack of action is known as the bystander effect, or Genovese syndrome, a psychological phenomenon where individuals are less likely to help a victim when others are present. During the police investigation, a first-floor resident reported seeing a black SUV approach the building on the night of the crime, although he couldn't see the license plates or who got out due to the darkness. The apartment complex had security cameras both inside and outside, which may have captured evidence of the crime. Investigating Rebecca's murder, detectives sought CCTV footage from the building to aid their inquiry. They requested the footage from the building manager, but he revealed that the cameras only operated in real time, and recording required a video cassette and manual activation. Unfortunately, no one had recorded the footage. This discovery led investigators to suspect the building manager, who had found Rebecca's body and had unrestricted access to her apartment as a resident of the building. They thought he might have taken advantage of the lack of surveillance to commit the crime, possibly under the cover of darkness. The police explored all avenues, and their suspicions about the manager intensified after a background check revealed his prior issues with the law related to illegal substances. Furthermore, another detail caught the police's attention. During their investigation, the police noticed dark red stains on the front door of the apartment complex manager's apartment. They collected a sample of the stain and sent it to the lab for analysis. Meanwhile, the manager was taken in for questioning at the police station. The investigators asked him numerous questions, trying to determine if he was hiding any information or if his story would change, but he denied any involvement in Rebecca Payne's death. The manager claimed he had spent the entire night in his apartment with his wife, and she corroborated his alibi when questioned by the police. However, the investigation was put on hold until the lab results came back. Once the report confirmed that the stains on the door were just paint, the manager was released due to lack of evidence. While reviewing video and photo evidence from the crime scene, detectives became interested in a specific card used to pay for public transportation in the Boston area. Since each use of the card was recorded in the system, including the location and time of use, the transit police provided the detectives with CCTV footage related to Rebecca's case. After examining the recordings, detectives discovered that the card had been used by Rebecca. Rebecca was walking home, calm and alone, with no one following her, so the initial footage didn't provide any leads in the case. A few days later, investigators obtained another surveillance video from a camera outside the hospital near the Parker Hill Apartments. This recording showed a black SUV driving by at the same time as Rebecca's attack, matching the witness's description. Although the footage was poor quality and the license plate was not visible, they were able to identify the car as a Ford. The detectives then brought Rebecca's roommate in for questioning to determine if she had any connection to the incident. The woman was shocked by Rebecca's murder and cooperated with the investigators. She had a solid alibi, having moved in with her parents to study for an exam, which her parents confirmed. Although she was cleared of suspicion, she provided useful information. She revealed that Rebecca's boyfriend, Matt, had access to their apartment. The investigators wondered if Matt had a motive to kill Rebecca and contacted him. Matt claimed he had left Boston to live with his parents in New York State around the time of the attack. Although Matt seemed depressed by his girlfriend's death, the investigators were convinced it was an act. Matt's parents confirmed his alibi, but a phone record showed Matt had spoken to Rebecca on the phone around midnight, just hours before her death. But the investigation into Rebecca's murder hit a dead end after Matt was cleared due to cell tower evidence, placing him at his parents' house in New York State at the time of the crime. Years went by with no leads, leaving Rebecca's parents without answers about their daughter's tragic death. However, a breakthrough came in 2012 when the Boston police arrested Anthony White on drug trafficking charges. With a long prison sentence looming, White offered a deal. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he would reveal crucial details about the night Rebecca died. The investigators saw this as a potential break in the long-dormant case and agreed to the deal. After discussing it with the prosecutor, White recounted that on May 20, 2008, he received a call from Cornell Smith, a fellow drug dealer and acquaintance. Smith wanted to meet up and arrived at the designated location with their mutual friend Michael Balba, who was driving a black SUV. The three of them drove to the Parker Hill Apartments, where Balba parked in a spot with a clear view of the apartments. According to White, when Cornell Smith spotted Rebecca through a third-floor window, he exclaimed, "That's her." They waited for a while, watching until the lights in Rebecca's apartment went out, indicating she had likely fallen asleep. Under the cover of darkness, Smith proceeded to climb from the first-floor balcony to the second and finally to the third, where he entered through the open balcony door. Rebecca was not asleep, but rather lying on the couch in the living room when she encountered the intruder. She began screaming, and a brief struggle followed. Cornell Smith then fired 5 shots at her before fleeing the apartment through the front door and driving away. Investigators were skeptical of White's account, suspecting that he fabricated the story based on news reports to secure a lighter prison sentence. The officers were baffled by the motive behind the murder. Why would Cornell Smith kill Rebecca, who was unrelated to his world? But White's next statement shocked and disturbed them. According to White, Rebecca's death was a case of mistaken identity. On the first floor of the Parker Hill Apartments lived 2 sisters who resembled Rebecca. These sisters, who were also illegal drug dealers, were Smith's rivals. In 2012, Cornell Smith was already serving a 12-year prison sentence for selling drugs, which he had been convicted of 2 years prior. Following White's testimony, Cornell Smith was also charged with Rebecca's murder, but he denied any involvement. Before Cornell Smith's court appearance, prosecutors were dealt a devastating blow. Their key witness, Anthony White, had died in prison. Without White's testimony, the case against Smith was in trouble, as there was no physical evidence linking him to Rebecca Payne's apartment. However, investigators had another lead, Michael Balba, who was in the car with White and Smith on the night of the crime. Detectives located Balba and discovered that he owned a black Ford Expedition SUV, which matched the vehicle caught on surveillance camera and the witness's description. Balba was arrested and taken into custody, but he denied any involvement in the case and requested a lawyer. Despite having no concrete evidence against him, investigators hoped that Balba's connection to the crime could still lead to justice for Rebecca. Investigators examined his court file related to drug trafficking. What they found was astonishing. Smith had written several letters to the judge presiding over his trial, and one of them implicated him in Rebecca's murder. In the letters, Smith portrayed himself as superior to others. Although some of the content was nonsensical, one letter stood out as crucial evidence. In it, Smith wrote about an altercation that had taken place in downtown Boston, which ultimately led to Rebecca Payne's tragic death at his hands, a fact he boldly admitted to, stating, "I, Cornell Allen Smith Sr., was responsible." It's unclear why these letters hadn't raised red flags earlier, especially since they were addressed to the judge. The letter proved that Cornell Smith was in Rebecca Payne's apartment at the time of her murder. The trial took place in 2015. Throughout the trial, the district attorney emphasized that Rebecca was an innocent victim with no connection to Smith or his accomplice, Balba. Payne expressed frustration and sadness, saying that seeing Cornell Smith, the person responsible for his daughter Rebecca's death, is a painful reminder of the tragedy and hinders their ability to move forward. Despite Smith's guilty plea and 18 to 20-year prison sentence, Payne emphasizes that nothing can change the fact that Rebecca is gone forever. The judge ordered Smith to face Rebecca's loved ones, acknowledging the immense pain he caused. Her hometown dedicated a tennis court, garden, and scholarship fund in her name to keep her memory alive. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of Jodi Sanderholm. Jodi Leanne Sanderholm was born on September 26, 1987, in Arkansas City to parents Brian and Cindy Sanderholm. As the third of three children, she had an older brother named Jason and an older sister named Jennifer. From an early age, Jodi had a passion for dance, which played a significant role in her life. However, she also prioritized her education and excelled in her studies. Jodi's academic achievements were impressive, earning her one of 4 valedictorian spots in her graduating class. During her high school years, she was an active member of the National Honor Society, received recognition as a Kansas State Scholar, and was awarded the Outstanding Physics Student of the Year award. Additionally, she was captain of the Ark City High School dance team for 2 years and an instructor for both Ark City Dance and the Universal Dance Association. After graduating, Jodi attended Cowley College, where she studied pre-pharmacy and was part of the Cowley Tigerette dance line. On the morning of January 5, 2007, Jodi drove to college for a dance rehearsal that was scheduled to end at 10:45 a.m. After the rehearsal, she planned to return home. However, when her mother, Cindy, called her cell phone multiple times, Jodi didn't answer, which was unusual for her. Being a responsible and communicative person, Jodi always kept in touch with her family, and her mother's repeated calls went unanswered, leaving her with a sense of unease. Cindy left work early to check on Jodi, who should have returned from dance rehearsal. But when Cindy arrived home, she noticed Jodi's car was missing, which only added to her anxiety. Entering the house, Cindy realized Jodi was not there. Her dance uniform, which she usually washed after rehearsal, was nowhere to be found. The shower stall was dry, suggesting Jodi hadn't showered after dance class. Cindy soon discovered that Jodi had not contacted her father or sister Jennifer either. Jodi had a noon appointment, but she didn't show up. Cindy and Brian began calling Jodi's friends, hoping someone had seen her. But none of them had since the morning rehearsal ended. The dance team was scheduled to perform at a basketball game that evening, and Jodi, as the choreographer, wouldn't have missed it voluntarily. However, she didn't show up. By 6 p.m., Cindy and Brian were still unable to locate Jodi, so they contacted the police and reported her missing. The sheriff's office quickly created flyers with Jodi's description and began investigating her last known whereabouts, issuing an APB on her vehicle. On January 6th, Jodi's best friend, Lori Leglider, whom she had known since high school and had danced with, provided crucial information to the police. The two friends had also attended Cowley College together, where they studied dance. Lori told the police that she had left her job at Sirloin Stockade in Arkansas City around 10 p.m. on Tuesday, January 2nd, and had noticed a light blue car driving by the restaurant multiple times as she departed. Lori noticed a car following her on her way home, which made her feel uneasy. To test her suspicion, she turned onto different streets, but the car behind her kept following. Frightened, she drove to the local police station and parked, hoping the stalker would leave her alone. When she didn't see the car anymore, she drove home. However, she soon saw the car again, so she returned to the police station parking lot and waited in her car for a while before driving home. Lori initially thought it was a prank, but she didn't report the incident to the police. On January 5th, Lori and her friend Jodi arrived at the college for a dance team rehearsal. Lori recognized the same light blue car that had been following her, and she saw the driver, 23-year-old Justin Thurber, who was a local resident. Although Lori didn't know Justin personally, she had seen him with his older brother and friends before. After practice, Lori and Jodi planned to meet up later, but Jodi never showed up. It was then revealed that several dance team members had also seen Justin lurking around the college campus that week. In the initial stages of the investigation into Jodi's disappearance, police searched the city thoroughly but couldn't find her car within the first 24 hours. The city of Arkansas is surrounded by open fields and wooded areas, making it a challenging task. To aid their search, authorities brought in a fixed-wing aircraft, to scour the region from above. They hoped to spot Jody's car, which was larger and easier to detect than a person. The police investigation revealed that the last signal from Jody's cell phone was received from a tower near the Kaw Wildlife Area, a vast wooded region along the Arkansas River. At this point, only one suspect had emerged, Justin Eugene Justin, identified by Lori Legliner and other members of the dance group. Notably, Justin was already familiar to the police due to a prior incident in 2004 when he was charged with illegal possession of banned substances despite his young age. Justin was sentenced but didn't serve time in prison. Instead, he was released. However, just 3 months later, he was arrested again for stealing in Probate Nation, violating his probation. In October 2005, he was charged with disorderly conduct. 3 months after that, he was arrested for petty theft and found with illegal drugs. Then, on December 31, 2006, just 6 days before Jody's disappearance, Justin was arrested for theft once more. After posting a $3,000 bail, Justin was freed on New Year's Eve. The very next day, January 1st, he pretended to be a police officer, causing a public disturbance. When the real police arrived, Justin claimed to have chest pain and was taken to the hospital rather than the police station. It's unclear why he wasn't arrested after being discharged from the hospital, and it's also unclear how he managed to avoid consequences for his actions. A family tie to Cowley County Police might have influenced events. On January 6th, an officer spotted Justin's Cadillac at his parents' house and initiated a conversation. Justin's father invited the officer in. When questioned about his previous day's whereabouts, Justin said he drove to Winfield, 13 miles outside Arkansas City that morning. In Winfield, Justin met up with a friend and 2 acquaintances of his friend, whom he didn't know well. The 4 of them then drove around the countryside in one of the acquaintances' cars until it became stuck on a dirt road near Cedar Vale. Justin claimed that he proceeded to walk towards Arkansas City, a 30-mile journey from Cedar Vale. After 6 hours of walking, he grew tired and called his father to come pick him up. Justin's father backed his son's story, saying he'd picked him up near Cali State Fishing Lake, where Justin was wet and dirty. The officer found the story unconvincing, but lacked evidence to charge him, so let him go. That evening, police questioned Alexis Schwartzel, who had recently ended her 3-year relationship with Justin Thurber. When informed about the investigation into Jody Sanderholm's disappearance, Alexis was shocked. She revealed that Justin had once told her that he had been watching Jody since he was 13 years old, often sneaking peeks at her while she swam in her backyard pool, and even peered through her bedroom window, waiting for her to change clothes. Alexis explained that she had broken up with Justin due to his abusive behavior and increasing strange tendencies. She recalled that during intimate moments, he would choke her until she lost consciousness. Moreover, he would ask her to fight him, as it was the only way he could become aroused. The police grew increasingly suspicious of Justin's involvement in Jody's disappearance, despite lacking concrete evidence. Nonetheless, Justin was arrested later that evening, on January 6th. Detective Eric Mata arrested Justin Thurber for bail violation and criminal trespassing because Justin was found on the college campus, which the detective believed he was not supposed to be on. Justin requested to speak with his lawyer when arrested. Around the same time, police officers arrived at Justin's parents' house with a search warrant. During the search, the officers took Justin's shoes, which were wet and drying on a towel. His father had helped him clean the mud from the shoes. The clothes he wore when his father picked him up were also found, but Justin had already washed them. On January 7th, rugged terrain search teams combed the Kaw Wildlife Area for Jody Sanderholm, finding shoe prints matching Justin's and smaller ones. They stopped for the night, resuming the search the next day. En route home, searchers checked Cowley County State Fishing Lake, recalling Justin was wet when picked up by his father. Near a public restroom, investigators discovered several important pieces of evidence. This included a muddy tire track shoe prints with mud on them, and a portable toilet containing a handwritten note addressed to the parents of Jody Sanderholm. In another toilet, they found dance shoes and a flip-flop sandal that matched the footprints found at the Kaw Wildlife Area. Further searches yielded a collection of personal belongings, including cut-off sweatshorts, a wallet with Jody's driver's license and social security card, a black leotard, a tigerette jacket with her first name on it, a vehicle floor mat, and a car seat cushion. Search efforts focused on Cowley County State Fishing Lake and the Kaw Wildlife Area. On January 9th, specialists used sonar to locate Jody's submerged car. Tragically, her body was found later that day, hidden under debris. DNA evidence linked Justin Thurber to the car and body, but water in the car likely destroyed additional evidence. Forensic investigators found crucial evidence after many hours of work. A hair on Jody's car seat was matched to Justin Thurber through mitochondrial DNA testing. Private DNA expert Barbara Leal analyzed samples from Jody's arm and chest. It was possible that Justin was involved. Cell tower data showed Jody's and Justin's phones were in the same area simultaneously. This was corroborated by Jody's friend Lori, who saw Justin in the college parking lot that day. Security footage confirmed Lori's account, showing Justin following Jody in his Cadillac. Investigators believe that Justin followed Jody from college to her home, where he attacked her after she retrieved letters from the mailbox. A shoe print identical to Justin's sneakers was found by the mailbox, supporting this theory. Footprints matching Justin's shoes were discovered at the Kaw Wildlife Area, and smaller prints matched Jody's shoes found at the lake, along with her other belongings. In the preserve, searchers found footprints of Justin and Jody side by side, indicating they walked together at one point. However, Jody's footprints stopped and Justin's continued deeper into the woods, so he carried her further on his own. His shoe prints were also found near where the body was discovered. Moreover, the three people Justin claimed to have been with on the day of Jody's disappearance denied his story, revealing that his alibi about getting stuck near Cedar Vale was a lie. The police drove Justin to Cedar Vale to verify his alibi, but he couldn't pinpoint the location where he claimed his car was stuck. Back at the police station, Justin agreed to take a polygraph test and requested that his relative, Chad Monroe, who worked for the Cowley County Sheriff's Office, be present during the questioning. The collected evidence was sufficient to indict Justin Thurber, despite his denial of guilt. The judge set his bail at $1 million. Justin's lawyers attempted to argue that he was mentally incompetent, but their efforts were unsuccessful. Given that Justin had graduated from high school and attended college, the judge deemed the defense's claim of mental retardation unproven. The medical examiner who performed the autopsy testified in court, describing the brutal nature of Jody's last hours. Her body and face were covered in bruises and abrasions, with clear signs of strangulation on her neck, which was ultimately determined to be the cause of her death. Here's what the medical examiner found during the autopsy. The crime was driven by sexual desire and involved an object, a stick. To give you an idea of what happened at the wildlife area without going into detail, it's worth noting that not all violent criminals are as brutal as Justin. At Justin's trial, 7 women, including his ex-girlfriend, testified that they had been stalked by him. One of these women was a co-worker who was so afraid of Justin that she had to have a police officer escort her to her car after work because she had seen him waiting for her earlier. He had left a disturbing gift on her car, a rose, and a note saying he was interested in her. Multiple witnesses reported seeing Jody Sanderholm's car on January 5, 2007. Carrie Morris, a friend of Jody's, saw Jody sitting in the passenger seat of her car as they drove past each other in Arkansas City around noon. Morris noticed that the driver was a large man. She tried to call Jody's cell phone, but there was no answer. Later that day, around 3 p.m., 2 other women reported seeing a car that looked similar to Jody's on a dirt road south of Arkansas City. One of the women identified the driver as Justin in court. After a trial, the jury delivered a unanimous verdict on February 17, 2009, finding Justin guilty on all counts. They recommended that he be sentenced to death. Justin's lawyer attempted to negotiate a plea deal to avoid the death penalty, but Jody's family opposed it. The judge ultimately sentenced Justin to death by lethal injection in March 2009. In 2008, Kansas expanded its stalking laws, increasing police authority and the definition of stalking behaviors. Since his sentencing, Justin Thurber has continued to appeal the court's decision. His lawyers are now arguing that he has a mental disability, which they claim is supported by evidence from 2018. However, the Kansas Supreme Court has put his death sentence on hold, citing a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that prohibits the execution of individuals with developmental disabilities, even if they are mild. Justin was found competent at his original trial. Years later, Jody's mother, Cindy Sanderholm, attended a hearing and was outraged that Justin had written letters to girls while in prison, seeing it as proof of his competency. Justin is currently appealing a death sentence, and a 2020 state law gives him the opportunity to request an attorney to assist with post-conviction DNA testing from the Cowley County District Court. This is significant because, despite it being 16 years since Jody Sanderholm's murder, the case is still not fully resolved. Additionally, the speaker believes that Jody pleaded for her life, but Justin did not spare her, denying her a second chance. Kansas reinstated the death penalty in 1994, but no one has been executed since then. In fact, the last execution in Kansas took place in 1965. Since the reinstatement, 10 people, including Justin, have been sentenced to death, but none of their sentences have been carried out. According to Adam Fan and Steele, spokesperson for the Kansas Department of Corrections, there are no plans for future executions. Jennifer Aldridge, Jody's sister, finds it surprising that Kansas reinstated the death penalty over 20 years ago without a plan for carrying out executions. She believes this issue should have been discussed when the penalty was reinstated. Even if Justin's death sentence is upheld, it is likely that it will not be carried out. Justin Thurber is currently being held at the maximum security El Dorado Correctional Facility in Butler County, Kansas. According to a 2014 report by the Kansas Legislative Post-Audit Committee, it costs almost $49,000 per year to keep an inmate in administrative segregation at El Dorado. Furthermore, it's not just the cost of housing a death row inmate, it's also 4 times more expensive to prosecute a case where the death penalty is sought by the prosecution. The Sanderholms feel that paying taxes is an additional unfair burden on top of the emotional pain they're already enduring as they wait for justice in their daughter Jody's case. Brian Sanderholm explained, "Every week, when I see the taxes deducted from my paycheck, it's a painful reminder that I'm supporting the person responsible for our suffering." His wife Cindy echoed his sentiments, saying, "He deserves the maximum punishment, which is what the law intended. We need to reform the law so it can be enforced effectively." If you were in our shoes, what would you want to happen to someone who harmed your child? Cynthia Ann Sanderholm, Jody's mother, sadly passed away on December 2, 2022, at the age of 63. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Elizabeth Arellano. Elizabeth Paula Arellano was born on August 16, 1987, in Fort Worth, Texas, where she spent her entire life. She grew up with her 2 sisters, Alessandra and Giovanna, and the 3 were incredibly close. After her biological father left the family when she was very young, her mother, Juanita, remarried a man named Fidel, who adopted Elizabeth and her sisters, treating them as his own. Elizabeth had a warm and loving relationship with her stepfather, who supported her in all her endeavors. She was a diligent student and dreamed of becoming a doctor one day. In high school, she met Rudolph Arellano, who was almost 8 years older than her, and the two began a romantic relationship. Although her parents were initially hesitant about their age difference, they trusted Rudolph and allowed the relationship to continue. At 16, Elizabeth married Rudolph and soon had 4 children, 3 sons, and a daughter. However, she didn't plan to give up her career aspirations to become a full-time mother. She pursued her childhood dream, graduating from medical school and working as a paramedic, with hopes of furthering her education to become a doctor. Elizabeth was a kind and pious woman, raised in a Christian tradition. She was devoted to her children and instilled in them the importance of loving and helping others. Those close to her described her as a caring and responsive person, always willing to lend a helping hand. From the outside, her marriage to Rudolph appeared to be strong and happy, but beneath the surface, it was struggling. Rudolph's jealousy and controlling behavior had been a problem for years, and over time, it became increasingly unbearable. In the spring of 2016, Elizabeth finally reached her breaking point after another jealous outburst from her husband. Taking her children with her, she moved back to her parents' house. Rudolph attempted to reconcile, but Elizabeth was exhausted from tolerating his anger and didn't want her children to witness the constant fighting. So, she found the courage to file for divorce. Shortly after, Elizabeth mysteriously disappeared. According to her friends and family, she had been in good spirits and had decided to go out with colleagues to a local club after work to take her mind off her marital problems. On Friday evening, April 15, 2016, 28-year-old Elizabeth went out with her friends to a fun spot. She had a great time dancing, but didn't drink alcohol because she had driven her car to the club and planned to drive home. After a successful night out, Elizabeth returned home well past midnight on April 16th, parking her car outside her house. She then phoned a friend she had been with at the club to let them know she had arrived home safely. However, despite saying she was home, Elizabeth never actually entered the house. The next morning, her mother Juanita was frantic with worry when she discovered Elizabeth was not at home. She knew her daughter had planned to spend the evening with friends, but she should have been back long before. It wasn't like Elizabeth to disappear without a word, and the fact that her car was parked outside only added to the mystery. Clearly, Elizabeth had returned from the club, but where was she now? When Juanita approached the car, she was shocked to find it unlocked with the key still in the ignition. Her daughter's purse and phone were on the seat, indicating that something was seriously wrong. Juanita immediately called the police to report her daughter, Elizabeth, missing. The police were hopeful they could quickly solve the case, given the leads they had. There was no sign of struggle or blood in the car, suggesting Elizabeth might still be alive. However, to move forward, they needed to piece together a detailed timeline of Elizabeth's movements that evening. To start, the police interviewed Elizabeth's friends and colleagues, who confirmed the time she left their gathering and later spoke with her when she arrived home safely. The police also found several calls and messages from Elizabeth's ex-husband, Rudolph Arellano, on her phone, which showed he had tried contacting her multiple times that night. The police went to Rudolph's house to investigate his whereabouts on the previous evening and night. Rudolph claimed he had spoken to his ex-wife, Elizabeth, the night before, and she had promised to bring their children to him for the weekend. However, she stopped answering his calls, leading him to believe she had changed her mind. The police found Rudolph's alibi suspicious. He said he had been at a local bar with a friend that evening and returned home around midnight. While his friend and other patrons confirmed he was at the bar, no one could verify where he went after leaving. Since Rudolph lived alone, there was no one to confirm he went home, making it difficult for the police to rule him out as a suspect. The police were intrigued by Rudolph's calm demeanor, given that his ex-wife was missing and they were in the process of divorce. Despite being married for many years and Elizabeth being the mother of his children, Rudolph seemed unaffected by her disappearance, which only added to the suspicions surrounding him. On the night a young mother vanished, a fisherman phoned emergency services to report a bizarre event. He was sitting alone on a bridge that spans an interstate highway, fishing, when at around 4:30 a.m., he witnessed a car drive onto the bridge, stop, and then the driver throw a large object, resembling a person, into the water. From his distance, he couldn't see details, but it seemed like something heavy and bulky was tied to the person. The darkness and strong wind on the bridge prevented him from seeing the car's make and number or hearing any sounds. Shortly after, a second witness came forward, who was walking his dog near the bridge. Although he didn't see what happened on the bridge, a distressing scream caught his attention, followed by something large falling from the bridge and a subsequent splash, then silence. Based on the witnesses' accounts, the police decided to investigate the pond near the bridge. A few hours later, divers discovered a body with a large concrete block tied to its neck with a rope. The body of Elizabeth Arellano, a missing woman, was found drowned. A passerby and a fisherman's testimonies helped locate her body, which would have likely gone undiscovered due to the strong tidal currents that prevented it from floating. An initial theory suggested that Elizabeth might have voluntarily ended her life due to family problems. However, this was quickly dismissed as it contradicted the witness account of someone throwing her into the water. Her relatives also confirmed that Elizabeth had big plans for her life and would never abandon her children and parents. The forensic medical results and a man's testimony, who heard Elizabeth's desperate screams as she was thrown off the bridge, revealed that she was still alive when a piece of concrete was tied to her neck. She subsequently suffocated to death. The brutal murder of Elizabeth, a mother of many, has left investigators baffled as to who could have committed such a heinous crime. Robbery has been ruled out as a motive, as none of her belongings were taken. Instead, it's possible that the killer may have stalked her from a club she visited or lay in wait for her at her home. Elizabeth's ex-husband, Rudolph, has denied any involvement in the crime, claiming he was at home sleeping on the night of the murder. However, investigators are not convinced, as he has no alibi and his behavior has raised suspicions. At his ex-wife's funeral, Rudolph appeared grief-stricken, saying he wished he could have died in her place. He even helped set up a charity to raise funds for her farewell ceremony, which seemed to convince his sister of his sincerity. However, when questioned again after the funeral, Rudolph's demeanor had drastically changed, as if nothing had happened. A review of CCTV footage has revealed a new lead. A car similar to Rudolph's was seen leaving Elizabeth's parents' house around 3 a.m. on the night of her murder. The neighbor remembered seeing the car parked near the deceased's house on the road. Similarly, another neighbor saw the car parked nearby. Significantly, it was discovered that the car later drove towards the bridge where the victim was thrown. This detail sparked many questions. When the investigation examined Rudolph's cell phone data for the night of the crime, the questions multiplied. The records showed that he made multiple calls, first near Elizabeth's workplace and then near his in-laws' home. Additionally, he sent several messages to his ex-wife, trying to find out when she would return, but received no response. It appears that he had been tracking her movements and eventually decided to wait for her return at her parents' house. The police gathered sufficient evidence to arrest Rudolph as the main suspect and take him in for further investigation. A crucial witness in the case was Rudolph's eldest son, who shared vital information with the authorities. When shown the rope found around his mother's neck, the boy recalled seeing it in his father's backyard, where he had played with it earlier. Additionally, the boy identified a piece of concrete from their garden, which had appeared after the fence was replaced. Significantly, small fragments of this concrete were discovered in the trunk of Rudolph's car. The investigation revealed that Rudolph had waited for his ex-wife at her parents' home, abducted her, and prevented her from entering the house. Rudolph Arellano kidnapped his ex-wife by forcing her into his car, where he had already prepared rope and concrete in the trunk. He then drove to a bridge, intending to kill her without being noticed. However, his plan was foiled when her body was later recovered from a lake. Arellano was arrested 10 days later, but initially denied any involvement in the crime, claiming he was at home on the night of the murder. Despite the overwhelming evidence and eyewitness testimony against him, Arellano maintained his innocence. However, faced with the possibility of the death penalty, he took his lawyer's advice and confessed to the crime. He cooperated with the investigation in hopes of reducing his sentence. It wasn't until January 2019 that Arellano pleaded guilty in court and provided a detailed account of how he kidnapped and murdered his ex-wife, the mother of their 4 children. The courtroom drama was intense, with Juanita, one of his daughters, fainting upon hearing his confession. His other daughters, Alessandra and Giovanna, were devastated, calling their sister's killer a monster. Rudolph showed no remorse or guilt for his actions, speaking about the murder in a cold and detached manner. He did not apologize or provide a motive for the crime. As a result, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Despite considering the sentence too lenient, Elizabeth's family chose to forgive Rudolph, as they did not want to be consumed by hatred. Her parents and sisters took on the responsibility of raising Elizabeth's children.